Welcome, I'm Nick Vavis, and this is City of Churches, where we take a look at distinctive houses of worship and their parish neighborhoods right here in the Brooklyn Diocese. Woodside had always been predominantly Irish and famous for its Irish pubs and its restaurants, but in recent years an increasing population of Asians and Hispanics moved in, and it really added a nice international flair to the neighborhood. So if you're ever in the mood for some good Colombian or Filipino food, you gotta come to Woodside. Now, the first European settlers arrived in the 1640s. They established one of the earliest Dutch outposts in Queens County, despite being surrounded by forests that were home to dangerous wolves, snakes, and other wildlife. In the late 1860s, a residential building boom began here in Woodside, and a new village was formed. It was named after a local newspaper column called Letters from Woodside, written by local resident John Kelly, whose home was actually right here where the parish school now stands. The village firehouse was called Fireman's Hall and was built in 1884. And in an upstairs meeting room, the first parish of St. Sebastian's was established. It was actually a small wood frame building that they built, and it was located right here, which is now the parking lot of the parish school. Now, I know a lot of the buildings are rich in St. Sebastian's history, the rectory and the parish center and the parish school, but something else I wanted to point out, which is very interesting, was this war memorial that was erected, and it was dedicated to the local young men who lost their lives for us in the Vietnam War. After the Queensboro Bridge was completed, Woodside became a transportation hub where multiple railway lines converged, connecting Queens with Manhattan. So in addition to the Long Island Railroad, there were also 2 trolley lines, and then later came the elevated subway line, which is where the 7 train runs along. This caused a tremendous growth in population and construction of additional housing for more than 6,000 residents in the small neighborhood. A new building that housed both a church and a school was completed in 1926. That same year, the Lowe's movie theater chain opened a new 2,000-seat movie palace across the street from the school. The first film shown there starred Buster Keaton and some of America's most popular silent screen comedians. By the 1950s, the Lowe's theater chain was forced to close several movie houses, and at the time, St. Sebastian's Parish had once again outgrown their church and was looking for a new house of worship. They purchased the Shutter movie theater and replaced the entrance lobby and the box office with a beautiful Romanesque bell tower and a vestibule. And as for the movie theater's auditorium, that's a totally different story. I'm going to go inside and have Monsignor Hardiman tell us all about it. Monsignor.
Hey, Nick.
How are you?
Very well. How are you?
It's good
Welcome
to see you.
Welcome to St. Sebastian.
Thank you so much. Listen,
Please,
I have a lot of questions. You and I had spoken a little bit about the history of this church, and I know this church in particular has a lot of very special artifacts.
Okay, well, St. Sebastian has a long history. The parish this June will be 116 years old. Originally, it was founded in 1894, and 2 years after its founding, the pastor, together with the people, was able to raise money to build a small wooden church, which was located across the street, actually across 3 streets, 3 major thoroughfares, Woodside Avenue, Roosevelt Avenue, and 58th Street. And that small church was sufficient for the original parish, which was about 350 families. But 6 years later, they had really run out of room in the small church, and they began to look for additional space. Well, in the early 1920s, they built St. Sebastian's School, and the school auditorium, together with the small church, and the rectory is located over there, and the convent is located over there. It's a stiff walk every Sunday morning.
Well, I saw Parish Center when I walked that way.
The Parish Center is something that was built in the late 60s, and what's unique about the Parish Center is we have an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And we might be the only parish in New York State. We might be one of the few parishes in the U.S. to have a swimming pool.
How long have you been here at St. Sebastian's?
I've been here for 8 years.
8 years. Okay.
And I hope to be here for many, many more years. So
I'll
put in a good word.
I will.
Please. Here we are.
Wow. It is very ornate.
It really is, isn't it?
There's a lot of marble.
It's all faux marble, though.
Is it really?
Yeah, including the altar. For about 6 months, I thought it was a marble altar. And then I'm looking, I'm saying, how do you get a marble altar to sit on top of a rug? And I went up and I tapped it one day, and it's wooden, but the artistry in being able to do something like that is incredible.
It looks so real.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And then the baldacchino itself.
The baldacchino is unique because in a church, usually you have a statue or an image of the saint that the parish is named after.
Yes.
Well, the baldacchino is the only place where an image of Saint Sebastian is. And right up at the very top of the baldacchino, you can see his face surrounded by arrows. And of course, Sebastian was shot to death with arrows and then clubbed to death for good measure. Over here we have two statues. One is the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the other is the Divino Niño. Sunday morning after the 12 o'clock Mass, and the 12 is our most populous Mass. We have almost 2,000 people at the 12.
Wow.
And at least 600 or 700 of them will line up here after Mass to come and see the statue of the Divino Niño.
Why, I noticed a lot of the paint has been worn off.
Sure.
Why is that?
You can see that people have been touching the child Jesus' feet and the globe underneath him. Sometimes, if you really look close, you can see that there's other pieces of paint that's been missing from it as well. You know, we have many unique things. This statue and the other statues, it's unique, but one of the greatest things we have is a chapel.
Well, there's something that you mentioned earlier that's very unique about the chapel that's in the chapel.
Yes, very unique.
There's something else that was really amazing to me, a connection
And
to
it was
the past.
amazing to me too,
And
because it only just happened.
Yeah,
so.
I jumped at that. I'd really like to show the viewers.
Sure.
And if we can,
Yep, absolutely.
let's go over to the chapel.
Let's go to the chapel. I don't know if you noticed, but every once in a while you can hear the train going.
So, Monsignor, thank you for bringing me into the chapel, and I'm very excited not just to see the chapel, but we had talked about something very special.
These are the stained glass windows that we have, very few in the church, as I mentioned, but these are among the most beautiful stained glass windows I've ever seen. They're done by an artist named Joseph Nicholas. His daughter is one of the artists who did the stained glass windows in St. John's University's new St. Thomas More Church. But here is what this prized possession of St. Sebastian Parish is. This box and its content are 116 years old.
Wow.
This is a chalice that was given as a gift to Father Edward Gannon, the first pastor of St. Sebastian. And about a month and a half ago now, a woman who was a parish secretary in Vancouver, British Columbia, sent me an email asking whether or not this might belong to St. Sebastian. And the reason was there's an inscription here. It says, Mrs. Thomas J. Ryan to Reverend E. M. Gannon, November 12th, 1894.
That is incredible.
Okay? Father Gannon was the first pastor of St. Sebastian's, and he was named pastor in October of 1894. So Mrs. Ryan either was a relative of Father Gannon's or something, and she gave him this chalice to commemorate him becoming pastor of St. Sebastian Parish.
So do we know when it actually went
Have
missing?
no idea. Didn't even know it existed until 6 weeks ago.
So you got the email.
She sent the email, and you can see the detail on the chalice and everything. And for
It's in pretty good shape, I was
for
going to say.
116 years old, it's in excellent shape.
There's no scratches or anything?
No, it's a silver chalice, gold-plated. And what my plan is that we're going to have this cleaned up, and we're going to use it for the first time in the celebration of the Easter Vigil this year.
Excellent.
And to bring back a piece of history, this would have been the chalice that was used in the early days of St. Sebastian, before there was a church, before there was the old wooden church, before there was the school, when they were still saying Mass in one of the buildings here in the neighborhood. So 116-year-old chalice.
Now, where did she find it, the secretary?
Oh, well, that's a great part of the story because a parishioner actually was a volunteer in a local thrift shop. And she came in one morning to volunteer and she found this chalice and several others. And she said, they don't belong in a thrift shop. I need to take them to a church. And she brought them to her parish. And then that's the rest of the story.
Can you imagine that came from a thrift shop?
A thrift shop, that's right.
That's incredible.
So for a 116-year-old chalice, this is in excellent shape.
It held up pretty well.
It did, and even the inscription and everything. I'm going to have it restored, though, just to make sure it's cleaned up and so forth. And I'm looking forward to the first time that we're going to be able to use this once again in St. Sebastian.
I'm looking forward to it, too. Save me a seat. I'd
Absolutely,
like to be at that
Nick.
Mass.
Thank you so much for coming.
Monsignor, thank you so much. I really appreciate the
Great
tour.
to meet you.
Great history, a lot to learn, a lot that we have learned. And I hope you guys enjoyed this tour as much as I did. A lot of interesting things, the artifacts, the fact that this came from a thrift shop and so many years later was found here. The fact that this used to be a movie theater and is now a house of worship, a house of God. It's really quite incredible. So join me next time on City of Churches, and if you'd like some more information on this episode or other episodes, you can log on to netny.net, and if you'd like to suggest a church that we should profile, log on as well and send us an email. Until then, I'm Nick Vavis for City of Churches.